I'm joined today by my guest, Edward Mitchell from Sinclair Taylor. They are excellent at what they do. And let's find out a little bit about it, because I think so much of a state agency and is we plan for the good times, and we, if we're going out on evaluation and we're going to win that instruction, I'll take everything that I need with me. And sometimes I forget the resources I need for when life doesn't go so well. So imagining, for argument's sake, you have a client and they end up selling the property to somebody that you might have introduced. How do you recover that fee? How do you go after it? It's a very difficult scenario, and one that most agents don't really like to get their hands dirty with, but luckily there are people that know all about that. So Ed, tell us a little bit about your background and what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so Sinclair Taylor was started back in 1999. So we're the original guys. So Bill Sinclair teamed up eventually with Tom Harris, previous director of a well-known large estate agency brand, and identified a niche in the marketplace essentially for the recovery of fees. It's one of those things for estate agents, kind of a negative, should we say. You always want to be positive within your local area, chasing people for money. Yeah, not one of those that kind of people really always want to do, a bit reluctant to. But then again, as you say, you might have that suspicion that you think somebody's done a fee, done a deal privately, and you deserve your fee. You've put your work in. That's where we'll come in and put that professional barrier between you, shall we say.
And as we say, agents they have a reputation to worry about, and so to go in hard in terms of sort of debt collection, it is not necessarily what they want to foster a great relationship with the wider public. So these things have to be handled carefully, and that professional distance that you can put between yourself and the client at that time, I would liken it to the professional distance that an agent is able to offer a seller between them and their buyer. They don't want to come into direct contact. It needs to be done in a different way, and I think this is the perfect service to do that.
That's right, yeah, and it's probably, when people think of debt recovery, they can think, oof, kind of bailiffs at the door and TV programs and whatever else with people turning up with stab-proof vests. But in terms of how we work within the estate agency industry, it's very ethical. It's very different approach to what people would think. Sometimes some estate agents might use a local solicitor and immediately go to solicitors' letters and legal letters and then call in the bailiffs. And you can get a negative reaction, because you're essentially kind of accusing someone of being dishonest and owing you some money. That's where we will come in. We will just very gently establish contact with the onward vendor, say, we do believe that you owe us this money. Can you get in touch? If we don't have any response from there, that's where we will go through a staged lettering process, and invariably you'll get a response from them after letter 1 or 2, where they generally tend to be setting up payment plans or acknowledging the fact that yes, they do owe money and contractually they were obliged to do it. So it's very rare that we even get to the stage where you're talking court fees or even bailiffs. So it does also protects estate agents' reputation within, let's say, their local area, whereby they're not the person that's chasing for the debt. It's a professional recovery company.
And I think what I like about this is that I reckon, and this is just my gut feeling, and I'm guessing here, that most agents that come to you for the first time are coming to you because they've got a live situation on the table that they need you to help solve. However, this, and obviously that's reactive. It's me coming to you saying, look, this person owes me this amount and I don't know what to do next. Can you help me with it? But this isn't just a reactive service. You're offering a service that is proactively monitoring on an ongoing basis all those withdrawals. So that to me is extremely interesting, because it's sort of, you're working in the background whilst I get on doing what I'm doing. And you might be the first person that comes to me and says, hey, David, good news. We've found something here that, that you're owed. It is, I take it that is the central part of your service.
That's right, yeah. So, it's a very emotive thing. Sometimes estate agents, as they won't want to, press the reputation if they believe someone owes them some money, but that person might be an upstanding member of the community. They don't want bad press to kind of be accumulating at the school gates. With ourselves, that's where essentially, we're finding people are approaching us and going, yes, I've got this one fee where somebody owes me some money. It's a real bugbear for them, and that's where their first introduction, to Sinclair Taylor might be. Invariably, though, a lot of the time we're reaching out because it's such a niche thing and still such a fairly new thing. Most estate agents don't really know that people like ourselves are out there unless that emotive one fee comes along. That's where we're either, when we've once established contact with them and dealt with that one case, we're then checking their stock. We do have, much larger clients, corporate estate agencies, most people know of in the UK, where we've been monitoring their stock since 1999, where we've established relationships with them and we're constantly monitoring that stock. So people can just bring us one fee, or you can bring us a large amount of fees. We will essentially monitor those fees and then report back to you as to which ones we've identified have sold, and then also find out if you have effectively introduced the buyer and review contractual terms before we then go to recovery.
It's fascinating, some of the statistics that you provided as well. For anybody out there that's watching this that may think we're talking about small money here, in the last year, you've recovered over £600,000 of estate agency fees that were due. Not small money at all. And you're continuing to monitor over 40,000 potential fees on an ongoing basis. So there's a lot going on there. Tremendous value, isn't there?
Yes, yeah, and at any one time we're dealing with anything from 100 to 200, 300 clients, across the UK, where we're continually monitoring their fees for them and finding fees that have gone elsewhere.
And in terms of the amount of percentage wise and so on of fees being recovered after withdrawal, different markets, people are withdrawing for different reasons. Typical scenarios may be that they couldn't find a buyer at the right sort of level. In some of the most recent market, it'll be that they hadn't been able to find a property to move to. But you've got some stats on how much of those fees have you've been able to realize in the last year or so.
Yeah, so the identification rates are quite interesting. So pre-2021, we'd have found that 25% of withdrawn instructions then went on to sell 6 to 9 months later. And of those 25%, around 10% were to a buyer effectively introduced by the previous agent. Since 2021, we've actually found that 40% of properties are going on to sell 6 to 9 months after withdrawing, and then 7.5%, approximately 7.5%, are to a buyer again effectively introduced by the previous agent. So some quite staggering figures there. Obviously, everyone's reading it's a very, very good marketplace. Everybody's selling usually within the first 6 weeks, but again, statistically, if you're a higher end property, a higher end fee, you're more likely to be frustrated when you're hearing that your friends, back last year or, kind of earlier in the year have sold in 6 weeks and you haven't, whether that be school holidays, whatever else, you're more likely to withdraw and then find that a buyer will come back later. And it may be a very innocent situation where a buyer's viewed a property, gone off to view something else, other properties for a couple of months, come back and realize you weren't on the market, and they could have knocked the door or found you on Facebook, and you very innocently gone, well, okay, actually, yeah, we are looking to sell, but we were frustrated we couldn't sell. And they do a deal, and you are entitled to a fee because you've put your work in. That's where we will identify those fees for you.
And just in case people sort of are wondering about the sort of work that goes into finding out when you're due a fee, obviously you're monitoring on an ongoing basis the transactions that hit the land registry. Now, the free data that I've got access to as a member of the public, that takes a while to update, and usually not as detailed as I'd need it to be if I were chasing it down. But you guys have a system where that is part and parcel of what you do.
That's right, yeah. So we have a bespoke piece of software that essentially will identify the sale for you, and then also we'll be able to then trace using the same software where a vendor goes to. So not necessarily will everything end up on land registry, as we know it's a very manual data entry process, can get lost down the back of the sofa. And then again, if people are getting the data, just say from Rightmove or Zoopla or net house prices, wherever they may look, again, the manual data entry, the information may have got lost. So we're able to identify these transactions, but then not only that, sometimes, all good agents will have onward change, but as we all know from working in a branch, kind of 2 weeks to exchange and completion, if somebody then doesn't make a call and find out, that someone suddenly switched and, they're breaking chain and then moving on somewhere else, you need to, this is where we'll come in and using our bespoke software, identify where they've gone on to then as well, and then be able to recover the fee.
So your accounts and your software, it's worth pointing out, all fully encrypted. It's a very safe system when it comes to sort of handling information and the data that's being handed over. And if I were to ask you, Ed, is this suitable for sort of agencies of all sizes? I mean, if I came to you with my one fee that I'm looking to chase, or I came to you with 100 and said, I want you to monitor it, can you handle both, or is there a sweet spot in the middle?
No, so if you have just one fee, even if it's just one fee once every 2 or 3 years, and you want us to monitor it and then be the intermediary, just pass us that one fee. As an aside from fees, we deal with tenant trace, we deal with ground rent collection, service charge collections, mooring collections as well. But on the fee side, we deal with some of the major corporates, say, where we're getting 10,000 lines of data from them and we're continuously monitoring them. We've been doing this in the residential sector, since 1999. But as a company, we work with a lot of the major brands, airlines, soft drinks manufacturers that we're all aware of around the world, and we're recovering, fees for them internationally. So as a company, this is something that we specialize in and we've been doing for a very, very long time, hence the bespoke software packages that we use.
And it's superb. I don't know a single agent that hasn't had a sale go off the boil or somebody sort of withdrawing from the market under somewhat suspicious circumstances sometimes, where their gut feeling tells them, everything about it tells you they've gone and done a deal with somebody whilst they were on the market with me. And sometimes you look at it as an agent and you just think, you know what, I'm great at selling houses. I'm less good at having these difficult conversations with vendors. I may pick up the phone and go, are you really sure? And then you're in the territory where you're accusing somebody of lying, and none of us like to be in that situation. So this to me is an absolute godsend, because I get you guys to do the job that I am not going to be able to do myself. And I think as third parties as well, you could put it in polite terms that, and I understand that you do this very gently, but you can put it in terms that when it comes out of my mouth as the person who's owed the money, it's simply not going to sound the same, is it?
Yeah, that's it. So again, going back to the process of going straight to solicitors' letters, it's all very scary, should we say, and tends to kind of get people's backs up. It's the first initial human reaction. With our process, we tend to find people will sleep on it after they've got letter one. By letter two, like I say, they tend to be paying us. The other thing from it, as you mentioned from a estate agent perspective, estate agents are salespeople, positive people. They don't want to have that. And also not only that, be thinking, okay, all right, for the next 6 to 9 months, I've got to constantly be getting my back office staff time and wages to check these things. And you invariably find you'd walk away from it and just take it on the chin. That's where we come in. It's free. We're going to monitor it for you, and that's where we're going to find it for you. And we're just freeing up that time and back office processes. So more time for valuations and sales calls.
And not only is it free, it will add to that bottom line over time, because inevitably you're going to find something. And as agents, we're busy people, and we don't have that time to sort of chase it down. But I think that the market at the moment looks like it's on the brink of sort of changing its dynamic, and those easy sales that we might have achieved at the peak of the market won't be there anymore, but that there will be. I think people always see these times as they get very opportunistic, especially when it comes to paying fees and honoring contractual terms and so on. So you guys need to keep on your toes. And I think that all agents need to sort of make sure that they've got everything in place to ensure that their fee is protected. And a lot of agents watching this will say, "Oh, I've got a contract, that's fine." How robust is your contract? Is
Yeah.
it going to allow you to collect your fees if you owe it? Under what circumstances are you allowed those fees? And that's another place where Sinclair Taylor are going to sort of help you out, because I'm sure that's one of the first things that you need to do is just check that our terms that we're issuing enable you to do what you guys do so well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so we can give you contracts and MOT. But again, invariably what we'll tend to find is when people come to us with a bulk amount of stock, the first year, say if we were looking at 2018 data for a corporate estate agency that hadn't reviewed their contractual terms with us, you will find the recovery rates lower than after we've actually done that MOT. So again, it's just shoring things up, shoring up the back office processes and making sure that that fee is recoverable.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, really. When you think about the service, you will want to have this running there. So in terms of working with you on an ongoing basis, if I were to say to you, right, I'm signing up today, what work is involved from my side? How often do I need to sort of update you with information? How is that done? Is it through your portal? Give us an indication of what it will take to service this.
Yeah, that's right. So as you're saying earlier, we use an encrypted client web service. So you get your account where you can see reports and you can get updates as to exactly where all your cases are and as to where money's coming in. When you're looking to essentially give us cases, you can just email them across to us. But invariably, people will use the client web because it's an encrypted process where they can upload their data. From there, you just sit back, and that's where the free monitoring service comes in. We will report back to you within a week or two as to what properties we found, sales have been achieved on. And then we will then, as I say, kind of then look at who's been effectively introduced, identify if they have been introduced by your agency, and then work out what we do from there in terms of recovery. So it's really, really simple. It's essentially just get us that data, sit back, and then we report back to you.
Let you guys do the rest. I was speaking to somebody who gave you an excellent testimonial the other day, and they were talking about your ability to trace people was far better than theirs. A transaction had happened, the house move had happened, there was no forwarding address. They weren't able to find them, but you guys were. That comes into its own as well with tenants sometimes, when you get sort of people sort of moving around, they get quite transient. But your tracing services, part and parcel of what you do, quite robust, it sounds like.
That's right, yeah. So, a lot of the time people are quite shocked. You can see when they first establish contact with us that we've found them. But as I say, once they're over that initial shock and they realise that they're dealing with a professional, ethical outfit, that's where they tend to, invariably have been reminded. And, like the rest of us, really will look at it and go, okay, put their hands up. Okay, I owe some money. And well done, you found me. It's a different industry, should we say, to what people think it is. It's not like on the telly with, like I say, the bailiffs at the door. It's professional letters, very calm, relaxed, just reminding people of their obligations.
Yeah, and I think these are the sort of letters that people understand that they have to respond to. And if they ignore it, it simply isn't going to go away. That's not the way to deal with it. I highly recommend all agents consider putting this in their kit bag. I mean, it's going to sit in the background. It's going to do its job. It will find out when you're owed money, and it will give you that peace of mind that you don't ever have to sort of just write off debts because they're too troublesome to chase, or you're not sure where you stand legally. You've got some professionals in your corner. They provide an excellent service, and we might as well plan for when life isn't going to go right, and inevitably that will happen over the course of business in any market. So I think this is really essential for all agents, and highly recommend them to get in touch. So thank you very much, Ed, for giving us your time again and taking us through it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.